Hello everyone, I've decided to make yet another tier list video. Given the fact that the previous one I made was received very well, I want to make yet another one on the Dead by Daylight topic. So today I'm gonna be ranking every killer's Mori in Dead by Daylight. And the way I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna watch every killer's Mori, react to them, and then put them in the appropriate category, giving just a brief explanation of why I put them there. And as it happens, the most popular video on this channel is actually every killer's Mori in Dead by Daylight, so we're gonna use it for this purpose. Now, it doesn't actually feature every single Mori because the video is relatively old, so I'm gonna look up the rest and react to them as well. Anyways, let's dive right into it. So first things first, to make it slightly more interesting, we're actually gonna rename every tier just to make it a little bit clearer as well. Alright, so S tier. Let's think of this tier as the tier which is kinda Mortal Kombat fatality worthy. So we can actually name it Mortal Kombat fatality worthy, right? Alright, so A tier. A tier is kinda also fatality worthy, but it's not actually like fatality, right? So it's, well, it's A tier, so it's more like brutality. Let's actually give it this name, brutality. Alright, in the B tier we're gonna put Moris which are kinda savage but not as brutal as the A tier ones. So we can actually give it the name savage, right? So kinda savagery. The next tier is kinda like nothing special. It's still R-rated, but you kinda watch it once and forget about it, right? So we can actually say nothing special, right? And in the D tier we're gonna put Moris which are just boring to watch, right? They're just kinda like a waste of time in a way. The kind of stuff you would see in Marvel movies, unless it's like Deadpool. Kinda needs more to be interesting. So we can say needs more work to be interesting. Alright, so these are our categories. Now let's get on with the video. Alright, so the first one is the infamous Trapper. Let's watch it. Alright, right off the bat, the infamous Trapper, the most original killer, the mascot of Dead by Daylight, with possibly the most boring Mori in the whole game. I don't know why, but that's just the truth. Needs a lot of work to be interesting. It's just slash, and that's relatively speaking. Of course, it looks brutal, it looks savage. Obviously you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that, but the Mori, relatively speaking, compared to the rest, is just it's nothing. It's just slash, that's it. Alright, let's go to the next one. And the next one we have the Wraith. So this one is pretty much the same. It's like they took the Trapper's Mori and redesigned it just a little bit. Like the slashes are pretty much the same. The only difference is the Wraith does a little bit more as far as animation goes. So he pulls the survivor's leg at first and then slashes them. But at the end of the day, it's pretty much the same Mori. So nothing special, nothing interesting. So surprisingly enough, the very first two original killers in Dead by Daylight have the most boring Moris. And maybe that's intentional, but I feel like they could be much better. Okay, let's go to the next one, and the next one is the Billy. Alright, so this one is definitely better than the previous two. We see the chainsaw slashing the survivor. It's definitely more brutal than the first two, but still, relatively speaking, once again, it's really nothing special, but I would say it's a little bit more interesting because of the chainsaw, right? So in this case, I'm a little bit on the fence because I kind of want to give the Billy the love he deserves, but unfortunately, I think it's still like his Mori and just his idea and the concept needs or leaves a lot to be desired. At the end of the day, the killer is becoming more and more redundant because of the map's behavior releases, so you can't really play the Billy indoors. But we're not talking about killers here, we're talking about their Moris. Still, the Mori, I feel like, is just nothing special. It's pretty much the same as the previous two, the only difference is the weapon, right? So I would say D tier, maybe top of the D tier, we'll find out soon enough. Okay, let's go to the next one. And the next one is our beloved nurse. Alright, so now that was definitely something more original than the previous three, and I do enjoy the whole like choking animation, so especially if you're into that kind of stuff, this Mori is definitely visually satisfying, and the way she kind of closes the survivor's eyes is very, very cinematic in a way. But still, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the Moris, it's not really up there. It's not really brutal or even savage, I feel like. It's interesting, but still, it's nothing special. It's definitely better than the previous three Moris, and I don't think it particularly needs any work to be better. I think it's as good as it should be, but like I said, it's still nothing special. So I'm gonna put the nurse's Mori in the C tier. Alright, let's go to the next one. Alright, so the next one is the Huntress. If you're enjoying this video so far, please make sure you drop a like and hit the subscribe button. Let's continue. Now that one was definitely on the savage side. I wouldn't say there was nothing special. At first she kind of splits the survivor's head in half with her axe, which is already brutal and savage. Of course there's no like dismemberment mechanics in Dead by Daylight, but it looks pretty brutal. And then she continues slashing and slicing the survivor. It's definitely far more interesting than the previous Moris, and I think we're gonna put her Mori in the savage category. Just because of that axe at first, it looks very Game of Thrones-ish and very, very painful. So yeah, let's continue. And the next one we have is Michael Myers. Ooh. The way he just throws the survivor like, you're just worthless meat, you know? I think that's pretty savage, and maybe I'm gonna be a little bit biased because the whole Mori is just iconic. Yeah, it's definitely taken from Halloween, so the whole like stabbing and then he just throws the survivor. I think just for the iconic aspect, I'm gonna put Myers' Mori in the B tier, and that is not to say it's not savage. I mean, he stabs the survivor and then he just throws them like they're nothing. And to think of it, he exerts a lot of strength as well, because lifting a person with one hand takes a lot of strength. So yeah, that's pretty savage, actually. Pretty savage if you think about it. So we're gonna put Myers' Mori in the B tier. Alright, let's get on with the video, and the next one we have the Hag. This one is definitely gonna be interesting. This one is arguably one of the best Moris in Dead by Daylight. I mean, at first she goes for the jugular, rips the throat out, and then she goes for the heart, and you can actually see the survivor's heart in her hand, and then she devours it. She completely devours survivor's hopes with that. And I mean, oh my god, if you saw that as a survivor, like imagine your teammate getting ripped to shreds like that, you would definitely be terrified. You would be petrified. It's terrifying, and I feel like the whole performance is definitely Mortal Kombat worthy. So I'm gonna put the Hag's Mori in the S tier. It's quite easy. It's one of the best. It's one of the best. All right, the next one we have the Doctor's Electrocution. So the way he just psychopathically laughs at the end is already pretty savage, actually. Well, let's see where we can put the Doctor's Mori in. Well, I do think it's pretty brutal and savage. I mean, electrocution looks hella savage, and the way the survivor's eyeballs are burned out at the end and the smoke is coming out of them is definitely brutal. So I think I'm not quite sure whether to put the Doctor's Mori in the savage category or in the brutality one. But relatively speaking, I feel like the Huntress's one definitely takes the cake if we compare the two. So I think I want to put the Doctor next to the Huntress. So I'm gonna put the Doctor in the B tier. Alright, let's get on with the video, and the next one we have the Leatherface, aka Bubba Sawyer. Alright, something to know about that Mori, by the way. In that video when I was making it, that survivor actually DC'd as well. You can't really hear the DC sound because of the music, but just something to know. Something to know. And for some reason I just remember it clearly. Anyways, let's rank Bubba. Now, once again, I'll try not to be biased because obviously the Leatherface is iconic and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is definitely one of my favorite slasher movies. And if you remember the quote from the movie when they picked up the hitchhiker and Franklin was telling him about how they shoot cattle in the head with an air gun, and then the hitchhiker was like, that air gun is no good, it's better with the sledge because they die faster. And that's kind of how I see this Mori, and every time it reminds me of the movie. So the Leatherface first uses his sledgehammer and then he slices the survivors with a chainsaw, kind of like cattle, right? So I think there's no question about it, it's just brutal. Maybe it's not really like fatality worthy, but it's definitely up there. The Leatherface Mori is just really, really good. Alright, on to the next one, and we have the Nightmare, aka Freddy Krueger. Let's watch it. Alright guys, so, well, relatively speaking, compared to the rest once again, and compared to the ones we watched, I would say that was nothing special, right? So as iconic as it is, it's still not as savage or brutal as the Moris we put in those categories. Maybe it doesn't really need any work because, like I said, it's pretty iconic, right? So the Nightmare goes for this move, which he does in the movies as well. But yeah, nothing special, nothing really special going on there. And the next one we have the Pig, aka Amanda. Well, it looks quite painful, there's no doubt about it. Well, just like any other Mori on the list, But once again, compared to the others, it's not on a par with the rest. It's pretty basic, it's very quick, nothing really special going on there. Maybe it could use some work even. So compared to the Billy, I feel like the Billy's is actually far more interesting to watch, right? So let's put Amanda's Mori in the D category. And the next one we have the Clown. Now, the Clown's Mori is, without a doubt, unsettling. It might be the most unpleasant one to watch as well. It's definitely uneasy and it's not for the faint of heart. And the way he just licks that finger and then puts it in his belt, so, well, he's known as the finger collector as well. So yeah, that one is pretty brutal. And not just brutal, but gross as well. So let's put the Clown's Mori in the A tier. Alright, let's go to the next one, and the next one is the Spirits. I think the Spirits Mori is kind of beautifully poetic in this grotesque way, especially if you know her background story, the way she kind of expresses her wrath in that Mori. It's very, very brutal and savage, and you can feel her anger in that Mori. It's like she does that purposeful in a way, and the way she roars at the end, I think it's poetic. I think it's quite poetic, but at the end of the day, it's really, really brutal as well. So I'm gonna put the Spirits Mori in the A tier, maybe even top of the list for now. Alright, so let's continue, and the next one is the Legion, and as you can see, I got this goofy skin on him in this video, so this is definitely gonna be interesting. Alright, so the way he just rips the ribcage at the end is definitely like brutal. Like at first I was thinking like maybe savage, but his Mori is definitely brutal. And what I like the most about his Mori, I guess, it shows that at the end of the day he's just a human. So at first he actually misses, right? And that's what I like about his Mori. It kind of shows his human side and strength at the same time, right? So, but the way he just rips the rib cage at the end is definitely brutal, especially in that goofy skin. It looks brutal. So let's put the Legion up in the A tier. All right, the next one on the list is the Plague. Alright, well, that Mori is just disgusting because of the puke, obviously, but I think it's really brutal, like, considering the fact that her puke is plagued and everything, and the way she kind of slaps the survivor with her scepter at first is definitely, well, definitely visually interesting. So let's put the Plague, I'm not quite sure, but I think I'm gonna put her in the A tier. And maybe I'm a little bit biased because I do enjoy the Plague as the character to play. But yeah, I think her Mori is definitely better than the Moris below. So, alright, the next one we have the Ghostface, and as you can already see, he definitely prefers to be on top. So this is gonna be interesting. Yeah, that was definitely something. So the way he makes a selfie at the end is definitely funny in a way, even though why would you laugh at that? Because, well, a survivor is being killed. But still, it's it's definitely brutal. It's really great visually, but I wouldn't say it's Mortal Kombat fatality worthy. And I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me, because on that video I've got a lot of comments saying that their favorite Mori is actually the Ghostface's. But, well, once again, this is subjective, right? So I would say his Mori is brutal, it's very interesting to watch, but it's not really fatality worthy. So that's why I had to make it clear at the beginning of the video with the naming of this tier list as well. So his Mori is very cool though. Okay, let's continue. And the next one we have the Oni Macaroni. So I think that Mori is definitely brutal because of the way he rips the survivor's tongue out, and then you can actually see it in his hand, and then he squashes it. It's very, very brutal, and I'm not really sure how she managed to scream there at the end. But yeah, the Oni's Mori is visually savage and brutal. But I'm not quite sure where to actually put his Mori. I think I'm gonna put his Mori in the savage category. Maybe top of the list because of the whole tongue rip out, right? Alright, so the next one we have the Deathslinger. Yeah, man, that was definitely something taken from Game of Thrones, like the way his harpoon goes through the survivor's head is just, it's definitely brutal. And he also exerts a lot of strength, like lifting the survivor up by his gun definitely shows it. But the way the harpoon is shot through the survivor's head is brutality, So let's put the Deathslinger in the brutality category. I'm not really sure about the order anymore, so I'm just gonna put him here, right? So don't mind the order, right? So it's all about the categories, not, it's in no particular order at this point, I feel like. Okay, let's go to the next one, and the next one is the Executioner, aka the Pyramid Head. And this one is, well, I'm gonna be very biased about it, and you will see why. Just watch and listen. Now, the reason why I'm gonna be biased towards this particular Mori is also because of the editing. So when I was editing it, I specifically like timed it so he, well, there's like silence and then he stabs the survivor right on the beat, and you can actually hear it. So let me rewind it so you can see it, right? So the music kind of stops, and then it's probably the most epic moment in the whole video, at least for me personally. It's just, I feel like I'm so proud of this particular edit. Anyways, let's try and rank his Mori. And I think despite me being biased, I still think his Mori is really, really brutal. It might not be fatality worthy, but definitely in the brutality category, because the survivor is kind of squashed by his wires, and then, you know, his like great sword or whatever, like, what is that weapon, by the way? A great sword or a blade of Caesar's? I was never really sure, but yeah, the way he just stabs the survivor and squashes them, it's brutal. It's definitely brutal. So let's put him there. And yes, me being a total nerd, I couldn't help but Google, and apparently his weapon is called the Great Knife. Now, the reason why I'm not familiar with this is because I've never played Silent Hill, but I'm definitely looking forward to playing it once it's released on PC. So that's going to be definitely interesting. Anyways, let's continue. In the next one, we have the Blight. Yeah, so the Blight's Mori is definitely far more interesting than half of the Moris we've already watched. So I wouldn't say his Mori is actually that brutal. So he does hit the survivor with his cane, and then he injects them with his Blight serum, and then there appears what looks like this huge cancerous blob, and then he pops it with his cane, kind of like you would pop your pimple or something, right? Which is kind of hilarious in a way. So I think his Mori is pretty savage, just not that brutal, and that's my personal opinion, and I know a lot of people will probably disagree, but let's put the Blight in the B tier. Alright, so the next one we have the twins, and if you know it, they actually have separate Moris as well. So there's Victor's Mori and there's Charlotte's Mori, and it depends on whether Charlotte is carrying Victor during the Mori or not. So we're gonna watch them both, but at the end of the day we're gonna rank them as one. So let's see. So this is Charlotte alone. And this is Charlotte with Victor. Alright, so I think Victor's Mori is kinda comical in a way as well, which is kinda hilarious. And I definitely prefer their collaborative Mori rather than Charlotte alone. But if we consider everything, I think it's pretty savage. I don't think it's that brutal or as brutal as the Moris in the brutality category. So let's put them in the savage category. Alright, the next one we have the Trickster. So once again, I'm pretty proud of the editing on this one because I timed it so that when he throws the card and the knife, and when the knife pierces the card, it kind of falls right on the beat, which is audibly satisfying in a way. So I'm probably gonna be a little bit biased to that as well, but let's see where we can put the Trickster's Mori. Now, as much as I don't really like the character himself, I think his Mori is pretty interesting to see, and I would say it's definitely on the either brutality or savage side. Also, he has a kind of voice line when he does that. I'm not really sure what he says, but it's pretty cool. So I would say his Mori is in the savage category. Alright, the next one we have the infamous Nemesis. So yeah, if you're into tentacles, this Mori is definitely for you. But personally, I do like the ending part when he smashes the survivor's head with his boot. That one is pretty savage. And that's, I think, where I'm gonna put his Mori in the savage category. Okay, let's go to the next one, and the next one is the Cenobite, aka Pinhead. Let's watch it. I think his Mori is probably the most painful one, and it's not just brutal, it's definitely fatality worthy. It's something you would see in, well, Mortal Kombat, the way it has different stages and then the portal opens up and he kind of sends the survivor to his world. So yeah, it's the S tier, undoubtedly. Alright, and so far we only have 2 Moris in the S tier, but let's continue. Alright, and the next one we have the Artist. Oh man, poor Leon. Kinda reminds me of the alien for some reason, like, you know, the baby alien ripping the stomach apart and, you know, coming out of the stomach. Definitely has this kind of alien feel to it, but yeah, it's definitely brutal and painful, and the way she at first like gouges the survivor's eyeballs out and then, you know, the crow coming out of the stomach and then a murder of crows devouring the survivor. It's brutal. It's definitely brutal. So let's put it in the brutality category. It's murderous. Alright, the next one we have the Onryo, aka Sadako, or if you prefer the American version, Samara. Let's watch it. Yeah, the way she kind of twists and contorts the survivor is definitely brutal and savage, but I feel like there could have been more to it, right? So it's very quick. And the eyeball is definitely iconic, that stare, that bombastic eye. Still, I'm on the fence. I'm not really sure whether to put her Mori in the brutality category or the savage one. I feel like it's more savage than brutality. I feel like it's the B tier, just because of the fact it's a quickie. Anyways, let's continue. And the next one is the Dredge's Mori. Now, I guess because of the darkness, you can't really see the full brutality of it. He stabs the survivor and then he kind of pulls them into the void, right? So he's, at the end of the day, he's a souls collector. But yeah, I feel like visually it could have been far more interesting. So I would say nothing really special. As savage and brutal as it is and painful as it looks, visually it's just, well, nothing really special. Anyways, the next one we have the Mastermind, aka Albert Wesker. Gotta enjoy the survivor's slap there, right? So one of the only times where survivors can actually fight back is in this Mori, right? So, and then the way he says, let's finish this, it's very, very cool, very cool. I wouldn't say it's actually that brutal the way he finishes the survivor though, but everything considered, it's a very cool Mori. I would put it in the B tier, probably even top of the list because of how iconic this character is and the glasses, right? The glasses are definitely up there. Alright, the next one we have the Knight, and once again the editing on this one is particularly good. Just pay attention to the beat and the visuals. Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the best Moris in Dead by Daylight, and the way they just take turns as well, like first his kind of minions and then the Knight himself. It's visually it's definitely satisfying as far as Moris go. So yeah, I think I want to put this one in the fatality worthy category, just so we have more Moris in the S tier as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, I feel like it's definitely deserving. And by the way, I'm not being biased here because I don't really appreciate the Knight as the character, given the fact that at the end of the day he's just an M1 killer, but his Mori is probably the best part about him. So alright, the next Mori is the Skull Merchants, and this one is actually the last one in this video because when I made this video, the Skull Merchant was the most recently added character. So let's watch it and then we'll look up the rest of the Moris somewhere else. Alright, so when they first introduced the Skull Merchant in the PTB, I remember she had a whole different Mori, so it was even more boring than this one actually, but then they kinda reworked it, but still it kinda looks like Freddy's Mori at the end of the day, just it takes more time, right? And actually it's very hard to pull it off in all of its presence because of the angle. So for the most part, you will actually see like walls or inside the walls when you perform the Mori, because the angle is very far off. So yeah, I would say nothing really special going on there. I am glad they reworked it, because it was, like I said, even more boring and it needed work, right? So, but they reworked it and now it is what it is, and still it's just not on a par with the above ones. Anyway, so those are the characters from that video. Now we're gonna look up the rest of the Moris. So I found this one on the D-Strike channel. Let's watch it.
Will be fast, possibly painless. Die fast, please. It is over.
Oof. That ending is definitely brutal. So the voice lines are very interesting, and the robot said that it would possibly be painless, but judging by the scream of the survivor, it probably wasn't that painless, and it definitely looks painful and brutal, and the face melt at the end. Oof. So let's put the Singularity's Mori in the brutality category. Let's find the aliens one now. So I found this one on the Mute Newt channel. Let's watch it. Yeah, so I remember playing the PTB with the alien and expecting the Mori to be a little bit different. And what I was expecting the alien Mori to be was kind of like the artist Mori, right? So a baby alien comes out of the survivor's stomach, but what we got is, I guess, the alien releases its inner jaw and penetrates the survivor's face, which is also really brutal. But I think because of the duration of it, I'm not really sure if I should put it in the brutality or savage category. I think I'm gonna put it in the savage category, but just to make it clear, I'm not really sure about this one. I feel like it's just too short, and maybe not as brutal as it could have been. Alright, the next Mori is the Demogorgons, and I found this one on the Wolfie Owns channel. Let's watch it. Well, I guess the Demogorgon kind of went in for a kiss, but overdid it a little bit with his tooth-sawed mouth, right? But yeah, it looks very, very painful though. And I feel like it would have been much better visually if there was like dismemberment mechanic, right? But still, you can kind of use your imagination and imagine the head kind of pops, right? So it's pretty brutal, but I'm not really sure where to put his Mori, either in the brutality or the savage category, but relatively speaking, and compared to the other ones in this category, I feel like it's deserving for the Demogorgons to be in the B tier. So let's put his Mori in the savage tier. Alright, the last Dead by Daylight character to this day is Chucky, yet to be released by the way, and we're gonna watch his Mori. I found it once again on this channel called D-Strike. Let's watch it.
Just die already!
Chucky, just how many things do you need to kill a survivor? Yes. Yes, indeed. So first he throws his hammer, then he hits the survivor with his bat, then he sticks what looks like a chair leg into the survivor, then he stabs them in the neck with this huge knife, which looks like he stole it from Michael Myers himself, and then he says some nasty words. So I think voice lines change as well. So sometimes he actually swears, or he says what he said in this video. So it's really cool that they implement more and more voice lines for characters. But Chucky particularly is a sailor when it comes to swearing. When it comes to his Mori, I feel like it's definitely brutal. I wouldn't call it like fatality or Mortal Kombat worthy, but the sheer fact that he hits the survivor with everything but the proverbial kitchen sink is definitely brutal. And the nasty utterings of his definitely makes it whole, I guess. And as a bonus, I couldn't help but include this particular Mori, which is basically a skin for the trapper, and it's called the Naughty Bear. So let's watch it.
What time is it? It's naughty time!
It's naughty time. And the bear trap.
No! I don't think they want to play anymore. In fact, I don't think they can.
Alright, so this actually looks like something the trapper himself should have, not just his naughty bear skin. Now, this looked brutal, especially the trap, the bear trap, and the survivor's head kind of gets clammed, you know. It's definitely up there. So yeah, I would say the naughty bear is definitely brutal. There you have it, folks. All the killers Moris ranked. I hope you enjoyed this video, and definitely let us know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with the placements, and maybe you can even tell us about your placements. Obviously there's going to be some disagreement because at the end of the day, tier lists are subjective. This is just my opinion, right? So there's no point in debating or trying to refute it because, like I said, it's subjective, it's just an opinion. But I would really like to know your thoughts, so let us know. Also, I'm planning to do a tier list video once a week, and not just about Dead by Daylight, but just about anything general. So if you have any ideas you want me to explore, you can also let me know in the comments. And make sure you drop a like, and if you haven't subscribed, subscribe for more content like this, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of the future uploads. And as always, stay tuned, stay strong, see you on the next one.